through.
Elevator music.
Hello.
Breakdown. Beautiful function.
Brought to you by SCREAMCAST. Brought to you by SCREAMCAST. Brought to you by SCREAMCAST. Brought to you by SCREAMCAST.
Jesus.
By SCREAMLine Hotline.
Hey y'all, thank you for joining us on episode 5, season 2 of SCREAMCAST podcast with my anonymous guest here. What do you want to go by?
Call me TippyTop.
TippyTop.
Yeah.
Okay, TippyTop it is. And we're focusing in on TippyTop and I are focusing in on self-love preservation and when to take breaks and when self-love or self-preservation is too much at your leisure.
True that. Agreed. So yeah, I'm trying to find the right filter. My identity is totally blown.
So what do you work as? Or like not exactly your job, but what do you usually, like what is the general nature of your work?
So I'm what they call a content designer. So I work on websites and apps, and I write the content that you would read Like, so any messages that would pop up or any kind of instructions you would need to understand how to do whatever it is you're trying to do in the app, that's what I do. So, yeah, it's a cool job.
Do you work at home or do you work in like an office, like a set place?
It kind of depends. I work in an office mostly, but I work from home on Fridays. So it's a mixture of like being in meetings, but also, I work independently too. So just kind of do my own thing from time to time.
That's good. That's good. And you know when to take your own breaks too and like meet your deadlines as well?
Yeah. It's the type of job that needs a lot of self-management, but it's cool because with that comes freedom.
What breaks did you take today? Did you work today or did you take like an off day today?
No, I work today. So today was really interesting. I was in a meeting and these two people. So the meeting ended and there was just the four of us. And there was just a discussion going on, and then it kind of escalated into an argument. And,
You guys fought at work?
I didn't fight. I was kind of like an innocent bystander. I was just chilling, And then, there was just, what was good about it was it wasn't personal. It was just like different perspectives, different opinions on how to do what it is that we were trying to do. And it was just kind of an interesting situation because it wasn't like anyone was taking shots at anyone, but still, it was interesting. But yeah, so it's a cool job. Sometimes it's
Oh Lord, it sounds like there's like a lot going on over there though, even though it's like a big job.
So yeah, I kind of like spoke to each of them individually. Basically, like they should have just took that conversation offline, like separately, and not had other people in the room. Like that probably would have been a mature thing to do. Like, all right, we disagree. Let's talk a little bit after in private, But instead, they kind of went toe to toe, and it was a little bit awkward for the other people in the room, including me. I was like, like, do I say something? Do I just like walk out slowly? But it's fine. Like that shit happens.
How do you walk away from that and take your own peace and take your own peace of mind?
So I mean, it's tough because I agreed with both of them in different ways. Like I agreed with the guy. There was one guy that was antagonizing the other person. And I agreed with his point, but I didn't like how he was going about it. He was a little bit aggressive about it. And so I kind of like spoke to him afterward and just like, just what I just told you right now. You guys should probably have that conversation in private and just, I get it that we're all passionate about doing the right thing. And so with my job, because there's so much freedom and you sort of set your own schedule, you kind of decide how much you work, but with that comes responsibility. So like, I work a lot. So I work a lot because I know what I need to do, and I just I put the time in. But just like on the topic of balance, right? Like if I want to do a good job, if anyone wants to do a good job at what they do, they have to sort of detach themselves sometimes. Know when you're reaching that point where you're not thinking clearly. You're sort of just putting in the time to put in the time because you think that if you do that, you'll do a good job. But sometimes to do the best job, you gotta just like close the MacBook and go watch a movie and hang out.
It's a fact too. Like on mentalhealthamerica.net, you need to like you're more productive when you take breaks and not just taking a break like on your phone, like going on Twitter, going on Instagram. It's like unplugging and taking a full break, not even like maybe reading is like a cool hobby for you, but like not even reading, just taking at peace. And like sometimes people mistake peace for boredom, and it's like no, sometimes you have that time to like relax for yourself, which you like desperately need, and people don't really think that they need it, but it's like fueling you.
It depends on like what you're doing too, like what type of job you have. Like if you have a creative job, it's your state of mind plays such a huge role in the quality of work that you do. So if I'm in a shitty mood and I'm irritated, like I'm gonna do some shit work. It's not gonna be good. Or I'll try to make it good, but it'll be like forced, and you could tell. So, I mean, you just gotta know your limits, and I think that when you talk about like creative process, part of the creative process is not being creative for a little bit, like just
Yeah.
not working, just kind of separating and living your life and being a normal human being, and with that comes inspiration, and that will inform what you do better. So.
And that's totally normal too. People think like, oh, I'm having this big creative block. What should I do? And a lot of people fall into that trap of like getting really sad or getting depressed about like, oh, I can't create this or I can't put out this. I can't like, there is no time constraint on your quality as long as you get it done the way you want to get it done. And it's just that you need to shout out Melly too. Like you just need to get done what, in your own time. And that's like what your best product is going to be.
Yeah. And I think also, sometimes when you're working with people, like you can tell that there's egos and people sort of want to see themselves in their work. But I think that you got to detach your ego from your work as well. And if you're going to have an ego, attach it to the outcome, like the end goal, rather than trying to see yourself sort of prevail. That's what I try to do, at least, because when you're working with other people, it's like you're on the same ship, and like if you get to a destination where everyone's happy, you win. You win also. It's not about you, it's about the collective. That's just my perspective. I think there's a lot of different ways to go about it.
No, that's beautiful. How do you tend to like detach yourself from like your ego from your work like that? What do you do? Like, what do you think about in mind? What do you have in mind?
That's an interesting question. I guess it's intuitive, right? Like you just kind of have to like not think about yourself when you're like when you think something's cool, it's cool for the sake of it being cool. It's not cool because you think it's cool. You know what I mean? I guess that's like a simplified version of it. It's just
Wait,
like
explain that a little bit more. What?
maybe that's not very clear. All right, so you're asking how I separate my ego from my work, right?
Yeah.
So I'm proud of what can be accomplished with other people rather than what I can do on my own. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. So if I do a thing and it's cool, it's just me involved with that, but it has a much bigger impact when there's more individuals involved and when everyone can be proud of something.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's the fucking truth, man. That's really how great things are done. No one, no fucking leader in this world has done anything by themselves. No president, no, civil rights leaders. Like everyone who's done any kind of meaningful impact on the world, they've had a coalition of others supporting them, and it takes a network. It takes a network. So yeah. I guess that's
In
really
almost
the
every
ethos.
field that you can ever get into, it's like you're working with people most of the time, or there's people behind you, or you're behind other people, and it just kind of like that's how it goes. And it's just like, yeah, everyone should work together instead of working against each other.
Yeah. I think that's a large part of it. I don't know. What is your process? Like, do you do different creative stuff? Like, how do you go about that?
How do I go about what exactly?
So like, what's your I guess like your philosophy? Like, how do you like get work done? Like, when you want to create something, like what are the things that you do to get it done? Because there's so many roadblocks with creative work. There's yourself, right? There's anxieties. There's technical limitations. There's energy levels. Like how do you go about it?
No, definitely. I feel like it took me years and years to understand myself, and everybody's different, so what works for me probably won't work for everybody else, but it took years and years for myself to understand that I definitely need to take breaks, and I can't go on these streaks of like just going and going and going, even when I feel good and I want to like continue, keep making and making and making. Sometimes I do need to take a break because I'm not focusing on like my health or like my body or other aspects of my life that are really important. So I think that's like definitely just something that I like to keep in mind too, just like slowing down. And also, I feel like just to keep myself a little more balanced with my work, since I do work at home, I'm a little more just task driven and deadline driven. So it's just like I make sure I get my tasks done before I do some crazy stuff and then get held up and do that. So it's just like kind of just putting my priorities down. And I also write things down all the time too.
Yeah, that's helpful. I have a notebook with me I carry, so I just kind of like jot down random ideas as they come. But, yeah.
Same. I feel like also sometimes I'm really bad at it, but I do need to take like a break and not be on my phone and like unplug and do all that stuff that I said previously. Like I need to probably like what I like to do too is doing yoga, which, you know, requires your hands and your feet, so you can't be on your phone and stuff like that. So I like to take a yoga break because I know it's a full break.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that too, like getting physical, right? When you're working and you're behind a computer all day, just taking the moment to stretch or go on a walk or you know, run, exercise, whatever it is, that does wonders for your mind. And like when you do, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna ask, what is one break that you took today? Like one good break that you like. What did you do today that was like something good and beneficial to yourself?
So remember that argument I was telling you that happened from an office? So me and the other dude, we went for a walk, and we went to walk and we got smoothies, and it's so funny because I was on the phone with my mom or whatever, and he ordered 2 smoothies, one for me and one for himself. And then I was like, oh, I'm good, man. I don't want another smoothie. He's like, okay, I'll give it to one of the people that was in that meeting, right, that was involved in the argument. And so the 2 smoothies that we got were ended up given to those 2 people, like as like a, you know, like a consolation or like a feel better sort of thing. Like it was a tense argument. It was super nice. Yeah, that was valuable because like we decompressed a little bit because we were confused. We were like, holy shit, like what the fuck? Like where'd that come from? It should have been like a normal conversation, but it felt like there was some tension building up between them for a while. But what we did was
a lot of tension around you, like.
No, it's just today. That was like it never happens. But yeah, I mean, you know, shit happens sometimes. Honestly, keeps life interesting. Like that was probably the most interesting part of my day. Was being in that room.
You said that was the most interesting part of your day?
Definitely, because there was a lot to process. It was like, you know, I wasn't involved in that argument, but I was dissecting it. I was like, wait, why?
Yeah, you're just like a standing by, like, whoa.
Yeah, it was a raw moment because, like, thinking about it, I was like, this is not. Basically, there's been carried over tension. Like they've had something going on for a while because this should have been a normal conversation, but somehow it's turning into an emotional argument. So I mean, it was a lot to like digest. And anyway, that was a constructive thing because what could have been like a shit talking session turned into like let's try to make it better for each of them. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, friendship, community.
Oh yeah. No, I love my job. Like I love the people that I work with. Even the 2 people that were in that argument, like I respect both of them separately and together, whatever. Like they're fine too. Like they squashed the beef after.
That's good. I'm glad they squashed their beef.
Yeah.
But we're gonna take a quick break with JK from Das Racist and be right back with you on Screamcast episode 5. Break.
You didn't know. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. Joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. I'm so wild, they call me for local, where they do it for Coco. Puff like Coco, till I'm crisp like Coco. Bonobo, iced tea plus Coco, Sunoco, flow, no Pinocchio, no BP, just beat me, meet me where I beat beats, drop street, eat. I'm on the block like street meat. Call me Dwight Schrute, the way that I eat beats. No beat farm, just farm beats, smart me. A motherfucker try to harm me. Yeah? I scrap happily, smack a little scrappy type dude for free, not for a fee. I rock for a tea, or maybe just a cup of tea. Had enough of me, I'm just beginning. Finna be a minute for the fat lake singing. I'm swimming, I'm crazy, I'm wavy pipeline. Rappers lack flow, now they're trying to bite mine. Need like 3 lifelines, 3 whites, 3 lines of viper white at night to get hype. 3 types of nights, my floor sides is spike, my floor strams is tight, your punchlines is light. The days of our lives, plus the nights. Catch me on the corner, drunk and puking, crazy stupid, sitting Lucas. As a reference to the soap opera Days of Our Lives, even though I was a bigger General Hospital fan growing up. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. Yeah, see, quit smiling and shut your silly traps. These zooted brown weirdos is wildin', but they could really rap. They saw the cover of the tape, figured it's pretty whack. Later on, eventually admitted that it's pretty crack. Snatched the beer can out your hand, like give me that. I'm all up in the freezer at your crib, like where your gym be at. Couple W's in the Swiss ducky, spin me that. City fat, Jimmy hat, give me that. Similac, chug it, cut it, print it. I think it's finished, but really black. Run it back, tell me if you're feeling that. Wait a minute, like Ray J. My work is my play. Everyday payday. BB at the mall is going down. Mayday. And the joke's not the mall, the Macy's. Joke's not Macy's, but JJ's. Hey, they say they wanna have my kids like baby. No way, no baby. That's 18 years like Yay. Too much to pay. Sweating me like Shanae. She say she gave me melee 3-way. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, just joking. We're not joking. We're not joking, just joking. We are joking, we're not joking. You fuck her, dog, I smoke me too. You cheap cheaper, and yo dog, me too. Yo, me too. You like weed, do? Me too. You like smoking weed? I see you. These rappers whack as the movie rappers. They sacred, but they not equal. Oh, no. Call the rest sweet low, dude. Crossover numbers for brothers and white people. We not racist, we love white people. 4 trucks, apple pies, all equals. Yeah, Cheetos, Doritos, Fritos, Pringles, Kraft Singles, Slim Jims, Sierras, Butter Crunch cookies, Sour Patch Kids. The block is like a mattress in the hood. I'm flipping on it. Flipping in the ghetto on a dirty mattress. Over 30 actress, below a Dalier chapstick.
Yes. Thank you for joining us on SCREAMCAST Podcast, Episode 5, with our special guest, TippyTop. Is it TippyTop?
It's TippyTop.
Okay. TippyTop. And we're here talking about positive breaks, knowing when to take a break, and knowing when to give yourself some self-love, and knowing when to, self-preserve. So on our Instagram story, we asked you guys, is there such a thing as too much self-love? And we had 4 votes for yes and 13 votes for no. What do you think about that? Do you think that there's such a thing as too much self-love?
Yeah, I do actually.
And what is that?
I think that if there's too much self-love, I guess, when you take too much time to focus on making yourself happy, you forget to do the things that are necessary, which won't make you happy. Sometimes to accomplish some of the harder ambitions that you may have in life, it's going to require some sacrifice. And if you're only focused on, I guess, the positive aspects only, right? It's about balance. You have to know when to sort of switch between one and the other. But I think life is about making hard decisions and about being uncomfortable at times. And it's going to mean that you're not going to be happy. It's going to mean that, you know, you're going to suffer. Life is about suffering, but also life is about, about beauty. You know, there's a lot of beauty in that. And yeah, so I mean, just on the surface, like self-love, like what does that mean? That can mean a lot of things. But generally speaking, if you boil it down to just, if it's just about being happy and do the things that make you happy, it's a little unrealistic. Life is not like that.
I mean, all the time. You can't do that all the time.
No, definitely not. But it's important to know when to do it, right? Like, it's important to realize, like, shit, I'm working all the time, I'm a little bit depressed, I'm not really eating, I don't see anybody. Like, yeah, that's a moment where you gotta step back and be like, you know what? I gotta focus on me right now. I have to focus on the things that are going to give me fulfillment. But if you have certain goals, right? Like, if you want to achieve, let's say it's something like travel around Europe, right? Let's say if you want to go to Europe and you want to travel. That's hard. That's not all, you know, rainbows and unicorns. Like, it's tough to travel. Like, you have to be willing to like suffer through the train rides and the walking and not having all the things that you need at times. But ultimately, you have a goal. Like, there's something that you accomplish at the end of it, and you can get there. But I think it's just about being realistic with yourself. And so yeah, definitely know when it's important to give yourself love and all that. And that's just, yeah, that's my take on it. I'm curious, what do you think?
Well, first off, sometimes I find myself indulging too much. Like, you know how people say, like, oh, it's my self-care day, I'm gonna take a bubble bath, I'm gonna make my favorite food and stuff. I make my favorite foods like almost every day, and like I get too into it some days where I'm like, oh shit, I haven't done my deadlines for these things, and I crunch it all into like a span of like a couple days, because like I've been taking too much time, giving myself like too much time and too much like self-preservation, self-love for myself, and that I get lost in it, and I think it's easy to fall in that trap.
Yeah. I mean, just like from a personal example, like there was a time, like where I was putting off some of the things that I wanted to do. Like I was just, and I smoke weed all the time. Like that's something that I do, but it's like I was smoking at the wrong times. I would smoke and get lazy, and then I would just fucking chill and eat cereal and watch TV. And I love those moments. It's so, like, when you're procrastinating, there's something so wonderful about that. Like, you just fucking love life.
To be honest, yeah.
And it's okay. I think it's totally okay to do that. Like, I procrastinate on purpose, you know?
I'm guilty of, like, procrastinating all the time.
Yeah, but that's okay. Like, you just have to, like, know what your priorities are. So if you want to accomplish a certain thing, like, you have to kind of know when to procrastinate, when not to. Like, for me, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll procrastinate on purpose and just say, like, I need some fucking time to play video games. Like, I need to just smoke a little weed and play some video games. And then I do that, and the next day I feel better. And then if I keep doing that, right, every single day, then it's a bad thing.
Then it just evens out on the playground.
Yeah. But if I do it, like, every so often, it's, like, it gives me a boost. It gives me an energy boost. Because I gave myself a little bit of fulfillment. And I can sort of do the things I need to do after that. But, yeah.
That's good. Somebody says, not too much self-love, but one can easily over-exfoliate. Which I've been a victim of too. Like, I've washed my face too many times once. Like, I was just like pampering myself and shit. And I got like a face rash from like scrubbing too much. And I was like, oh Lord, that's when it gets down to too much self-love. Yeah. And also, somebody says, yes, there's such thing as too much self-love, and it's called narcissism. How do you feel about that?
I mean, that's a slightly different definition. I guess, like,
I think go on.
I was just gonna say, like, narcissism is like, I don't know if I would agree with that. I feel like if you're being narcissistic about how you give yourself love, that could be a thing. But give yourself love, too much love, it's an interesting thought. I don't know. I'm trying to think about it right now. Because
I think we're also like thinking of it as like too much self-love, as in like, oh, I love myself, I'm beautiful, I'm like, egotistic love like that.
Yeah. But even like the other kind of self-love, like when you take, maybe when you don't fulfill your obligations or complete your promises because you're giving yourself love, right? Let's say like you're supposed to do something for someone, be like, oh, sorry, I had to give myself some love today. Sorry, I couldn't go pick you up at the airport. It's like that. I can see how that could be skewed into like a narcissistic angle. But yeah, it's an interesting thought.
I don't know. I think it's like just finding that balance between like giving yourself time. I know time is a concept and it's man-made and all that, but it's just like giving yourself like too much time. I also asked on the story, oh wait, somebody says, is there such thing as too much love? Somebody says, too much self-love can distance you from reality. I don't know, maybe.
I saw that. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what I'm getting
I
at.
think so too. Like I said, how I get in that realm, I've definitely strayed away from reality because I've been like in my zone, like watching Netflix too much or something like that, you know?
Yeah, and like I said, like before, like it's good to sometimes detach yourself from the world and stuff. Like it gets overwhelming at times. But if you do that too much, yeah, I could totally see how you're just looking to escape all the time. And I think you have to ground yourself in the real world if you really want to do the things you want to do. Like again, that could mean anything for anybody. You know, if you just want to create a garden, or if you just want to learn how to cook, or if you want to create some project. Like it just depends on what your goal is. There's different levels of commitment required, but all of it you need to be in the real world. It can't be, video games is another example of detachment and escapism. That's why I like playing video games. Like I forget that I'm even a person in this world. I just sort of zoom into this character in this fictional game. And then I like even try to move the person like how I would move, just kind of really get into it. Like I play GTA.
It's like having The Sims.
Yeah. Have you played Grand Theft Auto? Do you know what that is?
What is it?
Have you heard of Grand Theft Auto?
Yes, I have heard of Grand Theft Auto.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say like when I play that game, I stop at all the red lights and I park the car and I walk.
Oh, you do the thing when you do the human thing in the video.
Yeah, I love it. It's the best. But I mean, again, like I'm just not living in the real world when I do that.
Oh, somebody says happens when too much self-love becomes ego. And how do you feel about that? I feel like maybe not like all the time it becomes ego, but maybe it becomes something like just like overthinking, which maybe I guess that is kind of like an ego thing.
Yeah, it's just putting yourself in the center. It's like I need this, I need that, but really sometimes
That's true. Yeah.
Sometimes like if you have to help other people, you have to not think about yourself. So like it's inconvenient sometimes to be the Samaritan. Like you know what I mean? It's like giving a homeless person food, that's kind of uncomfortable, but if you have it and you could do it, like, why not? But,
yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I also asked on my story on Monday, what did you do today that was just for you? And it's funny because, like, everybody said they smoked weed. And, like...
I love that. I love weed. I think it's really...
I love weed too.
It can be a very constructive thing for your mind and soul. It can be. Or it can give you a shit ton of anxiety. Like, it could be one of those two extremes. But I use it constructively, like on a Saturday morning. Oh my god, I love to just go
like for a creative high type of thing?
Yeah, like in the morning I'll wake up, I'll make myself a cup of coffee, and I'll just light up a joint, just kind of smoke and sip my coffee with a notepad. Just, admire whatever surroundings I'm in. But yeah, it could be a wonderful thing. I have to say that's one of my favorite things to do.
You're like, it's a hobby of mine.
Yeah. My job.
No, but everyone said they smoked the weed, they got high as fuck, smoked weed. smoked a bowl.
Jesus.
Somebody said meditation. Somebody says went to the beach, meditated, and smoked.
Okay. That's valid.
Someone said I ate a lot of fruit, which I thought was beautiful too, and that's like good for your body and your mind.
Oh,
Your
God,
sugar, good healthy sugar.
I love fruit so much. Can I give you a recipe recommendation for how to eat delicious apples?
Ooh, yes.
Do you know what delicious apples are? They're the dark red ones.
Yes.
Okay.
They have
So
the
you
name
get-
on the bag.
Yes, and it's so awesome that they're called delicious apples because that's exactly what they are.
Right?
But you get those very crisp ones and you slice them up in little squares. You put it in a bowl and then you get a lemon. You cut that lemon in half and you squeeze that lemon all over that bitch. And then you get some toothpicks or a fork and you just let it soak for a while and then you eat it. And it's real simple, but it's very, very good.
Oh, that sounds bomb. I will try it. You know what I heard is a good thing too, just like for anxiety and stuff,
What?
is what is it? Take apple slices. Now that you reminded me, just a little tip, like take apple slices, freeze them, or just put them in the refrigerator if your teeth are too like sensitive for that, like mine are. And every time you're feeling anxious or just feeling like too out of place or too overwhelmed, keep like a little box or a little Tupperware of those apple slices with you and just chew on them, or just like put one in your mouth and like suck on it and stuff. Yeah.
You can do that with grapes too.
Yeah, any kind of fruit. It doesn't have to just be apples. Like, I'm not too big of a fan of apples, but I do that, and it's just like, you could do any fruit. Just anything that you like.
Frozen grapes are delicious. If you haven't tried that, oh my god.
I'm not a grape fan. What is a
Like
grape
grapes?
even? I don't like grapes. What is a grape
grapes?
even like? Is that like it grows on a vine, it's like a seed? Is it? I don't know. Well, I'm sounding dumb, so never mind. I just don't like grapes.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't like the white grapes. I like the dark grapes.
The dark grapes.
The green grapes. Green grapes. I don't like green. I like red grapes and black grapes. Those are the best.
I don't like any grapes.
You're missing out. That's okay.
I tried to candy some grapes. Like, you know how they have those ASMR videos of like people eating candied grapes and shit like that? I tried to do that with the grapes and I didn't like them. I was like, oh no.
That's so sad. Grapes are delicious.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I know, I'm really
I'm a little bit
really,
sad
like,
right now.
getting into it.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah.
Is there, let me see. Is there any advice you would like to give on just balancing yourself out on like your breaks and your like self-love and self-preservation and all that, and just keeping yourself like well balanced, balancing your chakras and all that good stuff? Like your best advice.
I think it starts with being self-aware, right? You have to know, and by that I don't mean being self-conscious or insecure. Like, self-awareness is the key, right? Knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are, that's the starting point. Because from there, you can determine how to move forward. And like, you can really like game life. Like, you can move through it a little bit easier. So, I mean, it starts there, and that way, like, when you're tired or when you're feeling out of whack, you can look within and understand why that's happening. Is it because you had the argument? Is it because you dropped change and you couldn't pick it up, and then you were late for the bus and a bunch of other shit, and you got stressed out and irritated and led to this other thing? So just like really just having an acknowledgement of like the circumstances that lead to your state of mind, and there you can make the changes that you need to make, you know. So
No, that's very true. Like self-awareness is like the first thing that you need to do to stop you going into like a further portal of like, you know, whatever you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. I mean, it's that, and another part of it is attitude, right? I think that when you go into things with a certain attitude that's either negative or positive, it really determines as an outcome. If you go into something with this sort of pissed off like, yeah, it's going to be really unpleasant. But if unpleasant things happen, but you have a good attitude about it, you'll kind of get to the other side better for it, you know? Like if you're already going through something difficult, when you have a negative attitude, it's just another obstacle to come. It's another layer of bullshit. And if you have a better attitude about the things that you're going through, you'll find that it's actually it's less painful and it's less irritating because you're not fixated on the negative aspects going on. You're more
right. It's easier said than done, though.
We're human. Like we can't ignore how we feel. Like that's just the truth. But it helps if you, again, it goes back to self-awareness. Like if you know that you're pissed off and it's contributing to your situation, if you know that part, that's the starting point, and you go from there.
That's very true. And I think that's like a good start, like way to start for a lot of other things too, not just like your balance for like self-love. It's just like acknowledgement goes like all around and everything. And that's like good advice for, you know, umbrella on top of everything.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, and you know, it might not work that way. I sort of am speaking from my own perspective, but you know,
everybody's different.
Like that could work. Yeah, I feel like that could work. You can just make it work for you. Like if you know, you could take that nugget of truth and make it work for you, I guess. Yeah. So it's universal enough, I guess.
What was the last thing you said? Just to let you guys to know that he's using a voice disguiser, so that's what the mic is too, and he's like sounding all deep waves.
Yeah,
very anonymous.
I also have this voice, if this is better.
We were testing out the voices earlier, and then I was like, I don't like that one.
You didn't like the high-pitched one or the low-pitched one?
Yeah, I was like, it sounds like I'm talking to a frog.
What is
this one sound like? Do I sound like...
It sounds like an older frog.
Older frog? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What if...
about
Hello. This is my voice, my actual voice.
You have a British accent?
I am a British man. I like to eat the dandies and live on my scallywag. Yes.
On my scallywag.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Do you have any last words before we end the show in any voice that you choose? Pick a good one, though.
Oh, shit. Okay. Yes, I have.
Oh my God. What?
Can you hear me?
No, I don't know what that.
Alright. Okay.
I'm just gonna go with the normal voice. Normal voice. Okay. Last words. You have nothing to lose but your mind. Oh, sorry, that's crazy.
That's kind of true advice, though. That's kind of.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. You got nothing but your brain. That's all you got. When you die, that's it. That's what goes. So.
You live and you die, and you pay taxes.
That's true. And you eat fruit. Some of us, at least, some of us eat grapes. Some of us do not.
I don't eat grapes, but nope. I eat apples though. But thank you again for joining me on SCREAMCAST podcast, episode 5. Thank you for bringing or like coming totally anonymous too, and like doing this filter and setting up your whole voice changer too for us.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Do you use that thing for anything else?
Yeah, of course. I use it for my shows sometimes, but I'm on a hiatus.
Oh.
Right now. procrastinate my life. But yeah, when I get my radio shows back up and going.
I see. So maybe our viewers will catch on to your radio show, but until then, thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna tune out with Mommy from Kitty's new album Rose Gold. Woo, thank you again.
Bye.
You don't need to hide your mind alone.
SCREAMCAST brought to you by ScreamLane Hotline. Brought to you by ScreamLane Hotline. Brought to you by ScreamLane Hotline. Brought to you by ScreamLane. SCREAMCAST brought to you by ScreamLine Hotline.